In this video, I want to talk to you about how to ask better questions when you're reviewing someone else's financial model. For those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that my content is mainly about project finance theory and the Excel work and the application of project finance theory in real life and in real projects. However, there is another side in this practice, in financial modeling, which is communication. So basically, I would say the pillars of success are three. One is the knowledge, which is basically the theory and the techniques. And then is ability to be a solution provider, to be creative, to be practical. And the other one is social skills, how you communicate with people, with your clients and with your colleagues. So today we're going to talk about this third pillar, which is the social skills and communication. And we're going to talk about things that you need to consider or you better consider when you're reviewing someone else's financial model. So first thing that I want to recommend to you is to have a systematic approach, because I was basically, when I started my career, working at the African Development Bank and basically reviewing other people's financial models. At that time, I was like writing a long list of questions, 40 and 50 in the first round, and sending it back to the sponsors, to the clients and ask them to answer these questions. And I found them to be very frustrating and exhausting for people to go through a long list of questions. So the system that I adopt today is to do a step-by-step approach. So the first step is to go over the model mechanics, to make sure that the model mechanic is in line with my standards, with the way that I work, and also with the best practice financial modeling standards. So once I'm done with this step, I know whether I want to work with this model or I would recommend to rebuild it from scratch. Okay, so up to this stage, I'm not touching the inputs. It's like I don't know anything about the project. I'm just simply what I call the financial model mechanic. So I just check the model mechanics and I don't know anything and I don't touch the input. So once I am done with this, I'm going to report, I'm going to write an email or I'm going to report to my client that, this is how I think we should proceed with the financial model. Okay, so the next thing is to go over the inputs. So what you should do is to basically separate the inputs by type when you're asking questions. So say these are the questions related to the timing. These are the questions related to the tariff. These are the questions related to the capex, and all of them you can categorize them by type and also provide reference to the financial model. For example, if this cells, you're referring which cell in which worksheet so that it will be easier for them to answer. The other thing that I want to recommend is to make sure that you send the questions in writing and ask them to respond in writing. And once you receive the response, you go over the responses and most probably you will have still some questions or there will be some pending question. And then you can organize a conference call and go through the questions, the pending questions. But it's more productive to basically have your answers in writing. So here I want to show you an example of these question and answer. So this is basically, I have a checklist that you can download for free. It's a template it's a checklist that I use when I'm reviewing models. So the first set of questions, as I said, are just related to the model mechanics. And after I'm done with these checks, then I will go and look at the inputs. And when I'm sending the questions to the clients or to the financial modeler, what I do is that first of all, I include a sheet within my model, which I call it Q&A. And I'm going to basically put the question in that worksheet within the model. This way I can just track them later, when I want to know what were the question and answer, I know I have it within the financial model with dates and reference to the financial model and the specific question, who asked the question, what is the category and whether it is resolved or it is still pending. So having this worksheet within the financial model will help as well to better handle these Q&A sessions on the financial model. So you can of course download both of these templates. I'm going to put the links down below if you're interested. Okay, now let's get into how to better ask questions. one thing that the first thing that I want to recommend is to replace your why with what. It's asking why question is always like you're accusing someone. Let me just give you an example. For example, a why question would be, could you please explain why you didn't include any contingency in the budget? So straight away, when you're saying why you didn't include any contingency in your budget, it means that you're accusing them of not including it. But maybe when you're asking the question, you should consider that, okay, the contingency is not included in the capex. I don't see it, but maybe it's somewhere hidden in one of the capex item, in one of the cost items that I cannot see. So you better say, could you please indicate where we can find the contingency provision in the construction budget, and also provide more explanation, because you might, think that, okay, it is not included, that may be a right assumption to say. However, you're going to pose the question that, you cannot locate the contingency, and then you're going to tell them why it is important for you to have the contingency. You say, is it included in the EPC cost? So you're telling them that you're not accusing them, you're just trying to find out whether it is somewhere in the cost. And then explain to them that usually it's something that we expect, lender expects 10 to 15%, blah, 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 and all the explanations that are needed to justify why you think that this item is important. The next thing that I want you to consider is to be curious and open-minded. My book that I have, I call it Financial Model Detective. And I think that, when you're reviewing someone else's financial model, you should have this detective attitude. But the detective that I have in mind is more of the Hercule Poirot. I don't know if you know him. He's my favorite detective. He is very gentleman-like, and, he's very observant. So I would say that, adopting that attitude will also help to ask better questions. So pay attention to detail, but of course consider different options, and don't jump into conclusions. To just give you a concrete example, for example, if you see, in the cost items, you see something called management fees. Right away, you will just, write the question that management fees are included in the operating cost, and this is not accepted by us, this is early dividend and we don't accept that, this should be in cash flow waterfall, it should be after blah 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 blah. So you're going to just accuse them of something which might not be truth, and then you will just, it's so embarrassing, if they're going to come and give you justification that this is actually not a management fee. We are hiring, we have a contract, we are hiring this company for doing this service for us. So never accuse them of something, but rather ask questions. So if you see, for example, a cost item under management fees in the operating, you can ask them, could you please explain which party received the management fees? Is it just an internal estimation at this stage, or is it backed up by a contract? We would appreciate if you could either clarify or provide reference. Thank you. So you see, this is a more elegant way of, asking and questioning that cost item in the budget. The other thing to consider is to be clear and precise. Last week somebody reviewed my financial model, a company reviewed my financial model, and they came back with questions. And most of the questions were so vague and unclear that, I was questioning myself. I said, what's happening? I don't understand the question. So I asked my colleagues, and we had rounds of sessions discussing and trying to understand what they mean. So I think that this is just not really, just be clear, be precise. Provide examples. If you're asking for a calculation which is not normal, or you think that they might not know how to do it, provide an Excel template, provide a template. Just try to make it easy for the person to apply the changes that you are asking. Next thing is, don't preach, provide reasons. That's very important, I would say. For example, let's say that, the model, the format is not according to the best practice financial modeling standard, and you want to just say that. Don't just say that in order to comply with the best practice modeling standard, please separate inputs from calculation and use specific color codes for cell containing inputs. So remember that for someone who is not maybe familiar with the standards, they would say, what the hell is this person talking about? Am I a designer? What do they expect from me? So instead, just tell them why. I mean, this is just one example. For everything, we will see in another example in the next slide, that for everything, just provide the reason. Just tell them why you're asking this request or this question. So state the problem. Say that, you have found hard-coded inputs in the calculation sheets and in the calculation blocks, and then tell them why you think this is a problem, okay? So tell them that, and also provide a solution. So tell them that for the purpose of flexibility and transparency, we recommend to collect all hard-coded inputs within the model in the separate section, okay? And, just, provide, and also you can just tell them that this way we can review all assumptions and easily make changes if necessary. We also recommend that you use a single color code, for example, yellow background and blue font for inputs, and then provide them with a solution, a simple solution. You can tell them that, for example, you can go and download the generic macro by Professor Edward Bodmer and easily apply, color coding into your financial model, okay? So first of all, state the problem, and then tell them why you think it's a problem, and then lastly, provide a solution. So don't preach, just provide solutions and reasons, okay? The last thing is, again, another example of having this approach of providing solutions. For example, let's say that, you have received the financial model and it doesn't contain a flexible timeline. As you know, this is one of the requirements in any project finance model or any model, to have a flexible timeline. So if you want to tell them, just tell them, state the problem that the model does not contain a flexible timeline, why you think that it's important. As we progress with the appraisal of the project, key dates will be critical and payments need to be linked to the key dates, like financial close date, commercial operation date, and etc. Okay? And your recommendation. Therefore, we suggest including key timing dates, construction date, duration of construction, and duration of projections in the input sheet under timing assumptions, and then calculate flags and counters to make the model flexible and dynamic. And then you can also provide them a template that they can just have a look and integrate into the financial model. So as you can see, this is a more constructive way of asking for things to be changed in the financial model. So I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, please, let me know. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Most of the time I upload a video on weekly basis. So if you are interested in this content, please consider subscribing. Okay, that's it for me. I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you and bye. If you want to learn how to build better financial models, check out my online course on financial model spreadsheet design at courses.phoenixmode.com.